the licensing.
Yeah, that's great. Check them. That's great. If they're going for them.
It's already extended it. Was.
Welcome everybody and Happy New Year to our Planning Committee meeting at Lichfield District Council on the 8th of January 2025. This is a publicly broadcasted meeting that is streamed via our live website and available on YouTube. Therefore, ask you to conduct yourselves in an appropriate manner. Welcome those present in the public seating area and ask you to be respectful to the committee members, its officers, as well as those speaking. I ask that you remain seated and quiet during these proceedings. My name is Councillor Harvey Coggins and I'm Chair of Lichfield's Planning Committee. In a moment, I will ask everyone participating in this meeting to introduce themselves. Before doing so, can I remind everyone in the meeting to ensure that your mobile phone and electronic devices are either switched off or muted throughout the session. For those who have registered to speak, please ensure that your content is relevant and material to the debate in hand, that you are mindful of the allotted speaking time. If you go over the time, you will be asked to stop immediately. When speaking, please speak clearly so that those following from home, as well as those in the room, can see and hear you. Planning Committee is a non-political, quasi-judicial committee bound by National Planning Policy Framework, Lichfield's local plan and supplementary planning guidance. Our decisions are informed by planning considerations tied to these policies, but it is not a pure science. We must weigh up benefit and harm when coming to a view. The arrangements for conducting this meeting will be as follows. Officers will introduce each application. The members of the public or applicants and agents who have registered to speak will then be invited to speak by me to address the committee in turn. Members are reminded to keep their questions to the point and on matters of clarification for planning issues only. Technical questions or clarifications of details of the application will generally be best directed to the officers. Committee members will then discuss and decide on the officer's recommendation on each application. May I also be clear that we cannot receive questions or comments from anyone in the public seating area. Please be assured that the committee will aim to thoroughly question and consider all matters before it in coming to a decision. When we vote on the application, I will initially ask all members to confirm whether they are minded to approve the recommendations in the report by raising their hand. I will then ask for those of you voting against the recommendation or abstaining to confirm the specific planning reason you are doing so. In the event of a vote being carried against the officer's recommendation, I will ask officers to comment on the validity of the planning reasons. If recommended by officers, we'll ask members to vote again on whether to defer that item for a further report on those reasons. For any reason a member is not present for the whole of an item, they will be asked not to vote on the application. Now ask members and then officers participating to introduce themselves. If we start on this side of me, thank you.
Hello, I'm Will Stevenson and I'm the Principal Governance Officer.
Hugh Ashton, Vice Chair.
Derek Cross, Ward Councillor for Fradley and Orrewas.
Samirs, Ward Councillor for Highfields. I apologise.
Councillor Tom Marshall, Ward Member for Armitage with Hans Aker.
Councillor David Salter, Ward Member for Shenstone.
Councillor Jamie Chetland, Ward Member for Lemonsley.
Councillor Sonia Wilcox, Ward Member for Orrewas and Fradley.
Councillor Di Evans, Councillor for Burnley Hen Central.
Michael Galvin, Councillor for Summerfield and All Saints.
Councillor Keith Vernon, Ward Councillor for Colton and the Ridwares.
Councillor Jane Anketer, Ward Councillor for St John's.
Gareth Ball, Principal Planning Officer at Lichfield District Council.
Catherine Wharton, Associate Planning Consultant at LWMTS.
Howarth, Solicitor and Legal Advisor to the committee, and not Stuart Evans as the name suggests.
Hi, Artemis Ansell, Director of Planning and Regeneration.
Okay, thank you everybody. Well, next we'll move on to apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Sharon Taylor, Councillor Andrew Rushton and Councillor Joseph Powell. Anything else? No? Okay, is there any next thing? Is there any declarations of interest? Okay, Councillor.
Just a declaration, but I'll mention it anyway. I'm on the screen for Broome trust, charitable trust. It happens to have the same name, but I think it bears no connection to Swinford, the Swinford Hall.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the previous meeting. Have we all received these? Yeah. And are we all happy with them, or has anybody got anything they'd like to
Move them,
say
Chair.
about them? Okay. Okay, that's agreed. Yeah.
Aye.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the planning application. So tonight we've only got one. We are looking at Swinford Hall Hotel, The Drive, Lichfield, Staffordshire. The application number is 24/00806/COUM. And it is the conversion of existing barns A and D into offices with the installation of projecting balcony onto barn A, conversion of existing barns B and C into wedding venue, including a single-storey infill between barns B and C, installation of new fenestration and cladding, demolition of existing water tank to facilitate a new car parking area with access arrangements, cycle store and landscaping. Okay, I'd like to pass on to the officer for the presentation now, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I start, I just want to make a quick verbal update. Whilst this committee report was being published, the National Planning Policy Framework was updated. So I think it's within paragraph 6.1 of the report, where it says Chapter 12. It has been renamed as Achieving Well-Designed Places, but I can confirm that the proposals have been assessed against the new National Planning Policy, and it doesn't change the assessment of the proposal. As we said, this is for application 24/00806/COUM. This application is being called in due to the objection from Parish Council on barns B and C, which has the proposed use as a wedding venue. To clarify, the Parish Council are not objecting to the proposed offices of barns A and D. The application needs to be determined on its own merits and should be considered outside any other matters that are taking place on the site. This is the location plan. The blue line is the application site. The blue line is the land also owned. This is an aerial photograph of the site. There are no listed buildings on site. However, the site is within the setting of Grade 2 and Grade 2 star listed Swinford Hall. To the west of the site is a small residential settlement of Swinford and Swinford Prison. The site is within the Cannock Chase Special Area of Conservation. However, there would be no mitigation needed for this application, and it is also located within the Green Belt. This is the existing site plan, and it shows the position of the 4 barns and the on site. This photographs of the site. So photograph 1 is looking at the front elevation of barns A and B. And photograph 2 is looking at the front elevation of barn B and the gap between barn A and B. Photograph 3 is showing the rear and side elevation of barn C. And photograph 4 is showing the front elevation of barn D. Photograph 5 is showing the side elevation of barn D and the rear elevation of barn A. This is a proposed site plan, and it's showing all 4 barns along with the proposed parking and some indicative landscaping. The proposals incorporate a total of 53 parking spaces for staff and guests. The parking includes a total of 3 disabled parking spaces and 16 cycle parking spaces for both staff and guests. There is additional parking located elsewhere on Swinford Hall grounds, which I'll talk about in this slide. So this is the floor plans for barn B and C, which is the wedding venue, and it will be able to hold up to 350 guests and will provide kitchen facilities and toilets. The area between barn C and D will be covered, linking the 2 areas to become a bar with a seating area. That's sorry. Sorry, what I just said is this slide. This is the elevations, floor plans and elevations for barn D. The top image shows the floor plans for barn D, and the office will be able to seat up to 52 desks, and the office will be 2 stories and will have a breakout facility, toilets, meeting rooms and a kitchen. Sorry, I think I've jumped ahead. I've just realised I've
Okay.
I'll go back to where I was starting, sorry. I'll start again. So this is the floor plans and elevations for barn A. It will cater up to 60 desks with meeting rooms, breakout space, kitchen and toilets. The office will incorporate a mezzanine floor, which has an external balcony. The mezzanine floor can be accessed by a spiral staircase. And the drawing in the bottom right shows the front and side elevation, and the rear elevation and the other side elevation are similar. So this is the floor plans for barns B and C. Yeah. And this is the elevations for barns B and C, the wedding venue. The top image shows the front and side elevation. The bottom image shows the rear and side elevation. These are the floor plans and elevations for barn D. So the top image shows the floor plans, and the office will be able to seat up to 52 desks and will be 2 stories and will have a breakout facility, toilets, meeting rooms and kitchen. The bottom image shows all 4 elevations. This is a computer generated image of what the wedding venue will look like. And lastly, this is the master plan showing the wider Swinfen Hall Hotel site. On the left, there is a large parking area with 234 spaces. 79 of those are existing spaces and 155 spaces are within the car parking extension. These spaces have already been approved under 21/01570/FULM. However, the extension has not yet been delivered. These spaces, along with the 53 parking spaces located around the barns, are able to meet parking standards and cater up to the 350 people at the proposed wedding venue. It was determined within the transport assessment that no provision for coaches or minibuses will be provided, as guests tend to travel in groups within cars. Neither National Highways or Staffordshire County Council Highways have raised any concerns with this, and therefore the parking provision is considered acceptable in terms of planning policy. In order to ensure the previously approved parking is delivered, the application proposes to use a unilateral undertaking to ensure that the approved parking spaces are delivered before the works can commence on site. In addition, residents have raised concerns over noise coming from the wedding venue that is currently there. The Environmental Health Officer is willing to recommend approval subject to conditions 3 and 4 being met. Condition 3 would need to be discharged before the booking of the first wedding. Condition 4 would need to be discharged before the first use. These conditions are very thorough and require large amounts of detail to ensure noise levels would be adequate for the surrounding area. Furthermore, the noise impact assessment provides hours of use which the applicant would need to abide by should the application be approved.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got some speakers tonight. So the first speaker is Jess Horton, the agent. If you'd like to come up to here.
To sit with.
Yeah, if you just sit there, that'll be great. Thank you. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak. Your time will start when you begin speaking, and we'll let you know 30 seconds towards the end, and then when the time's over, you have to stop speaking. Okay.
No problem.
Okay. When you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, members, for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Jessica Horton, and I'm here representing Next Top Limited, the owners of Swinfen Hall Hotel. This is a repeat application following refusal last year. The principle of this development has never been questioned by officers. The refusal was based on a single reason relating to biodiversity net gain compliance. This has been resolved with the applicant committing to planting 215 native trees on the land. The need for this development is to keep Swinfen Hall going as a commercial venue. Since the master plan approval for the site in 2022, market conditions have seen a significant decline, with interest rate hikes, the war in Ukraine, and the cost of living crisis all converging to stifle development of the tourism industry. The only way of maintaining Swinford Hall as a publicly accessible asset is to generate income by other means. Put simply, the hotel is no longer viable, but the ongoing use of the site for weddings, events and offices is the optimal solution to secure the future of the venue. The preservation of the hotel is of paramount importance, and the funds derived from these barns is essential. Without the income that is forecasted to be generated, urgent repair and careful restoration to these areas may prove too costly. In addition, there are items which were signed off as part of the 2022 planning scheme that require capital and would be funded via this income stream. The weddings and events that have been held from the site for many years, included under the current ownership, have further spin-off benefits for the wider economy, bringing in visitors to the area and creating jobs for a range of local businesses in the catering and events sector. The weddings, along with the hire of the hall, which will be permitted over the summer, allows the public to utilise and appreciate the historical asset, and the implementation of certain aspects of the 2022 planning scheme will allow the wedding venue to host guests to stay overnight. The idea of converting some of the barns into offices is considered complementary to the weddings, with these events only being held at certain times of the day and predominantly in the summer. The office use will ensure optimising the site during weekday office hours. Although there have been a number of objections on the grounds of noise, the council's environmental health officer is satisfied that noise from events can be mitigated, and a condition is proposed that requires a noise management plan to be adhered to, which includes sound insulation measures and ensuring windows and doors remain shut whilst amplified music is played. In summary, the scheme provides a range of planning benefits to Lichfield. These include the rejuvenation and optimisation of an underutilised and failing tourist asset in Lichfield, the preservation and enhancement of a listed building while securing its long-term conservation to wider public benefit, the enhancement to the appearance and setting of the site through the sensitive conversion of the derelict barns, provision of a best-in-class events venue that brings wider spin-off benefits for local businesses, and the creation of employment opportunities throughout construction and operation, including the opportunity for apprentices and trainees to gain experience. I hope, therefore, you will agree with your officer's recommendation and approve the application this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, for you to head back now, thank you. So we've got a second speaker tonight. It is Steve Cresswell, an objector. If you'd like to make your way to the... Okay. Same again, your time will begin when you start speaking. You've got 5 minutes. You'll be given a warning, 30 seconds towards the end of that, and then at the end of 5 minutes, you have to stop speaking. Okay,
Thank you.
when you're ready. Thank you.
I'm here this evening to object to the application. Based on the noise nuisance the application has proven will affect the neighbouring properties. I'm a close neighbour of the hotel living on the Swinford estate. We've endured a great deal of noise nuisance from the weddings that took place in the marquees that they had. The loud music was unbearable, even with all the windows in my property shut, and no amount of complaining to the hotel caused them to take any action to mitigate this. With this new application, they commissioned a noise impact assessment based on the materials, layout, operation of the proposed building. This shows empirically that based on the original spec given to the sound engineers, there would be significantly observable effects suffered by neighbours like me. The noise impact assessment then provided detailed amendments to the construction and operation of the building to bring these noise levels down to an acceptable level, but none of these recommendations are visible in the application that they submitted. Firstly, the recommendations mandated an entrance that had 2 layers of doors called a lobbied door system, like an airlock for sound, whereby one set of doors was open, the second set was closed, thus keeping the noise inside the building. In the plans, you can see this has not been implemented, but rather their drawings show us large timber barn doors 10 metres wide and 3 metres high, hold the size of a house, funneling the sound directly towards our properties. This is not going to be a door they can keep opening and closing due to its size and weight, despite the operating recommendations saying all exterior doors must remain closed at all times when amplified music is being played. Secondly, the noise that will happen the latest at night and be the most disturbing will be people leaving the events in early hours. To assess the impact of this, a car door slam assessment and an external patron noise assessment was done. But for both calculations, the origin of the sound was the actual barn where 53 car parking spaces are, not the car parks where the cars and patrons will actually be. New parking for 200 cars will be situated less than 25 metres from some houses on our estate, and the plans do not require them to leave until after 1 AM. With the increased operating hours, the increased number of attendees, the proximity of the noise to residents, and the apparent lack of any of the suggested noise pollution mitigation measures, we feel this will cause great disturbance to our quiet neighbourhood. If these buildings go ahead, I don't see why they wouldn't seek to fill them 365 nights of the year, leaving the neighbours in an awful situation with late night noise every night. I know Environmental Health have recommended this application be approved, but I don't believe they've studied the noise impact assessments in the detail I have. The recommendation that the application be approved with conditions on noise is also unlikely to work, as the new owners of Swinfen Hall have not proven themselves to be good at self-governing. The listed building rules have been repeated and publicly broken, and when neighbours have complained about the noise from the marquee weddings in the past, we've been repeatedly ignored. I believe this proves their contempt for the council, their neighbours, and restrictions placed upon them. I'm not saying this development should not go ahead, but the plans for the development and the noise impact assessments are worlds apart. I would like for this application to be resubmitted with a noise impact assessment that covers what they are actually planning to build, or the building plans updated to include the noise abatement measures recommended in the existing assessment. If this is not done, I feel we will endure years of fighting with Swinfen Hall, which could be avoided if they are clear about their plans now and sensible restrictions can be placed on the impact of the development from the start. I understand that Swinfen Hall is a listed building and its upkeep requires a great deal of money. I wish for it to be a commercial venue, making money and keeping the building well, but I don't wish that to be at the cost of our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so that's over to councillors now to ask questions or debate the matter. So we'll start with Councillor Salter, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Chair. Yes, 2 or 3 things sort of cropped up. I'd already written down, and then another couple of sort of cropped up during the course of the presentations this evening. I feel it's a little perhaps unfortunate that this has come through as a dual application for what is basically 2 different sites for 2 different purposes. There are concerns from various quarters about the Barnes B and C, and yet everyone seems happy about A and D for the business use. And we can't perhaps do this evening. We can't split it certainly, but maybe consider a reapplication separating the 2 if it were to be deferred this evening. Other things that have cropped up, the highways report states that if the traffic increases are minimal, such that they don't represent any concerns, etc. Whereas we also learn that the increase is from something like 180 guests to 350 guests. That's a 100% increase, hardly minimal. So perhaps that again needs reviewing. The other question really is on in respect to, I know a lot of this, when it comes to fruition, if it were to go through and the wedding venue continues, then there would be the question of licensing for hours and etc. But does the existing license effectively act as a blanket for the whole development, or would these new parts to the area require separate licensing? A few little things to kick around there. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anyone got any?
Yes, in terms of the highways matters, I have had extensive contact with both Staffordshire Highways and National Highways about this application. They haven't raised any further issues with the site, so I have tried to cover all bases in that respect.
They're aware that it's 100% increase, not minimal.
Yes, they are. They are aware of everything in the application. Yeah. You can do it.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
thank you.
please. Yeah.
So if I can just answer your first point, because you quite queried that these seem like 2 separate proposals, and is there an opportunity to defer it and split them?
Oh, yeah.
It's not within our gift to ask that. We can only deal with what's in front of us and judge that on its planning merits. This has come in as one application, and we've been asked to deal with it in the round as one application. So we wouldn't be able to.
Even if it were deferred.
Well, you
Pending separation.
ask for it to vote to defer it, but we cannot force people to submit a particular type of application. You know, you'd have to have good grounds to defer it for that as well.
Okay, Councillor Marshall next, please.
Yes, thank you. I listened with interest to the comments that were being made by the objector, Mr. Creswell. Obviously, he's expressing concern about the potential for noise impact on neighbours. And I think we're all cognizant of how upsetting that can be. But I'm just looking at 8.10 on page 14, the environmental health team has confirmed that the application is approved. A condition should be attached to the decision to demonstrate that all noise measures are installed and are working in accordance with the recommendations set out in the acoustic assessment. I think that's very, very important. And I would suggest that obviously that is clearly worded. It's absolutely imperative that we, the local authority, make sure that those rules, those directives are adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Sorry, can I just say, just going back to the last Councillor Salter's questions about licensing, would you answer them?
Do you want me to pick up on that?
Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you.
I think the point about licensing, I mean, obviously the licensing issues aren't a material planning consideration. As an aside anyway, I think without seeing the current licence, it'd be difficult to say whether or not it covers the proposed barn. I doubt it would do. I would think that they would need to apply for a new premises licence to operate from that barn. But obviously it's not a planning consideration.
No, I appreciate it's not planning. Yeah, just taken separately.
Councillor Mears, please.
I fully understand the impact that noise has had on the residents. And what the resident speaker said, they've been having events in an outside marquee. Now that they have put planning in for a building which could have proper noise mitigation, can a condition be made that there could be no outdoor events in a marquee? Because then they would effectively be experiencing double disturbance.
On your point about that it being a proper building, there is within condition 3 there is very extensive noise mitigation being asked for, and the wording of the condition has been ran past Stuart Evans, who's usually here tonight, and that to ensure that the condition works and it meets the 6 tests that a condition has to meet. Stuart agrees that it would be able to be met, and it does ask for things like keeping windows shut so that no noise gets out, but then also that there's ventilation within the building so that obviously you can still get air in and everything in that respect. But I guess in terms of a condition, could we put that sort of thing on with the marquee?
So I think this application has come in off the back of previous sort of developments or on the site, and one of those was the marquees before, which is subject to a separate appeal process at the moment. We could attach a condition on there, subject to meeting the 6 tests, and that being, is it reasonable to ask for that, or are we being overbearing? So that's a question to yourselves, I suppose, as to how far.
Whether there is capacity with the parking to hold a marquee event and a wedding event. It looks like they're creating parking to accommodate the building, and therefore where would all the extra cars go? So for residents, they could have faced the effect of noise from 2 lots of cars and 2 events. So I think our job is to help protect the standard of living.
Yeah, that would be reasonable. And as you know, we had concerns with sort of the erection of marquees on the, and the impacts of that on the setting of the listed building, the proximity to that listed building, and the setting of the wider grade 2 area, the sort of site area anyway. So if that's something that you feel strongly that you would like to add, then absolutely, then that is something we can do.
If possible, I'd like to add that. That's okay.
I think the only difficulty is just speaking to the planning officer. I understand the marquees are subject to a planning enforcement.
Yes.
Appeal at present. No.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I've got Councillor Anketel. Or is it about? Okay, Councillor Anketel first.
Do they have to ask for permission every time they hold a marquee event?
So So at the moment, there's no permission in place for a marquee to be erected on the site. It's subject to planning enforcement appeal. They were served a notice on that. So they're appealing that at the moment. So that's with the inspectorate at the moment for determination. So we have no decision on that yet. And we're unlikely to get a decision on that anytime soon. So that's with the inspectorate separate at the moment.
So we can't have a condition that there is no marquees allowed.
I think the difficulty is because it's subject to an appeal where permission could be granted on appeal for the marquees. I think it wouldn't be reasonable to impose a condition preventing the use of the marquees.
Can officers advise how we can put a measure in place to protect residents from extra noise from outside events, rather than me coming at it with, I would like this? Can you advise us on how that can be incorporated? Similar.
Yeah, sorry, can I just go to Councillor Ashton, please?
Yeah, on page 26, we have some notes on the implementation of the noise management plan, which is required for compliance with condition 3. This at the moment by inference only applies to the new development. It could be extended to the whole site, and that would mean that we would have noise impact assessment for any marquees or outdoor events. We would have enforcement for these things, and we'd have constant monitoring. And the other thing, condition D, is quite interesting in that the operators are required to keep records of noise levels. So my suggestion for an alteration to the condition would be that all of condition 3 plus the associated enforcement measures apply to the whole site, not just to this new development, if that is possible.
Sorry, Chair, just to come back on that point, it wouldn't be necessary or reasonable to extend the conditions to the marquees. The difficulty is that that's subject to an enforcement appeal at present. So we're kind of second guessing what the inspector will do. He may actually dismiss the appeal. If he upholds it, he may uphold it subject to conditions, and he may actually require such controls over the noise for the marquees.
Right.
The other issue as well is that there is the Environmental Protection Act, which sits outside the planning regime, and statutory nuisance. So if there are noise problems at the site and it's a statutory nuisance, the council can serve an embankment notice on the owner of the site. So there is a remedy there if there's a difficulty with noise outside of the planning regime.
I appreciate there's a remedy available, but we're in a position where we can put a preventative measure in from the start so that they won't have that conflict.
Because of the
It's outside the plan.
And that I think the marquee site is outside the red line, which is the site of the outline of the site, isn't it? And these conditions only apply to that site and the red line. We can't just magically take it over the red line. So but if I understand correctly, we could put a condition in there saying that outside events wouldn't be acceptable.
Could we do that?
in the red line.
Only within the red line.
In the red line.
Red line.
There isn't space for anyway.
It doesn't cover the appeal area.
Cover the appeal area, can we?
It's not affected by the appeal area.
So it would all be internal and subject to all the restrictions.
Wouldn't all of the outside.
Yes, what I think also it will secure and amplify the indoor actually by the insulation measures. Sorry, yeah, so appreciate you're in that situation where a lot of this information will be secured by the conditions that have been recommended. Which will then be obviously be interrogated by officers again when that information comes in, if permission were to be granted. We've got an insight to some of the information that's coming with the noise management plan, the outline noise management plan that was submitted. So we say, you know, there are two separate sites here. In terms of the site we're looking at today, music, amplified music would be indoors, so it would thereby be subject to a sound insulation method that come under another condition. All the other elements of the noise management plan, such as amplified music, not playing after 23:30 hours, all the the noise limiting devices that will be applied to any speaker systems that will obviously stop it from going over certain levels, which are the levels that the noise impact assessment has found are acceptable when assessing to the nearest residential properties. So that's a separate site. But in terms of this site, and we could always add an informative if there was anything specific that members wanted to say that they want to ensure was incorporated or suggest should be incorporated into that finalized noise management plan. But the music would be indoors and therefore subject to all these measures that officers are recommending to that.
Okay, right, can we just go to Councillor Vernon because you had your hand up last?
Thank you, Chair. All the worries seem to relate to noise management in the actual venue. And as our principal planning consultant has just said, there are noise limiting devices that can be applied to speaker systems. What would be my main concern is I think there are 220 parking spaces, give or take, I can't remember the exact number, 350 guests. Now, I'm certain all the drivers will be stone cold sober and will not drink and that wouldn't apply to the rest of the revellers who have had a fantastic night, are probably tanked up, full of good spirit, bonhomie, and come out calling to each other and having a wonderful time getting in the cars. I would hate to be living in a house 25 yards or meters from that car park, because I think the noise of 220 cars driving off with very inebriated revellers every Saturday night, I want to move. And I don't know how you could get round that. You couldn't get them to park in a field somewhere else. But I think that would be the main problem, because noise abatement systems could manage the noise emanating from the buildings. It's the revellers leaving at 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning. I think that would be, that's just my opinion.
Okay. I had Councillor Mears, I had you down. Did you still want to speak now? No, you're done. Okay, Councillor Evans, next, please.
Yeah, I'm going off what everybody else has said, because I'm just concerned about the period of construction, which on page 24, number 12, I notice that there are hours of construction and deliveries as well, which is really important and important for the residents there. How is that monitored? I assume that if residents complain that it can be monitored in that way, but are you going to accept just that, or is there any other way that you monitor? Do you go out occasionally on site to check that? And the other thing that I was going to raise was on same page 24, number 10, about the lighting, because that concerns a lot of people at night, the brightness of lighting, and I can see that there is something in place to ensure that the lighting is suitable for this venue. So can we be assured that that will be very closely sorted so that people do not complain when it's up and running, particularly when it's dark nights, that the lighting is properly done and the specifications are as you ask for?
In terms of the lighting, yes, obviously the condition does ask for it has to be approved by us planning officers. So we can look into obviously make sure that it's acceptable for residents. In terms of being monitored during construction, I don't know if it would be okay to impose a construction management plan with this application, or however, in terms of monitoring,
Yeah, so it's not normally us in planning that would monitor construction management plans. A lot of that falls within other areas, so whether it's highways or environmental health or whichever remit it falls into. In the round, if anybody, as you said, does highlight anything to us, then we do pass that on to our planning enforcement team and they will go out and investigate. Like similarly, if there's anything out of hours, then we do have out of hours teams in the regulatory team that are there to monitor these things if something does get reported. So that's generally the way that we do things.
Yes, thank you. I'm just concerned that over time we've had loads of people that have asked about hours of construction, so we just need to make sure that it is suitable and adequate. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Checkland next, please.
Right. I think we've covered the actual wedding venue itself quite well. I'd like to ask questions in relation to the approval that took place. I know it's already approved for the 234 additional parking spaces, whether in fact part of that proposal was because it was going to be a wedding venue, or whether that was just for additional staff or additional things that were going to happen at the hotel, in which case, because the 53 places have been set available, it says in 11.11, the wedding venue will operate at the opposite times of day, meaning the uses will not impact on one another. Weddings take place on every single day of the year, and none of them start after 6 o'clock. They pretty much all start around about lunchtime, so you end up with all of your traffic there and all of the people who are working at the barn. So we've got 90 people using 53 spaces. So all wedding guests will park in this new car park. What restrictions or sound issues were covered within that, or can we not even consider what happened under that application?
That has already been approved, so we can't change anything from that application.
I get that, but it's clearly an application that is put in place for this next application that is now with us. So in relation to people leaving, pretty much every single wedding guest, apart from the one staying in the hotel, is going to leave via that car park, because the 90 spaces, the 53 spaces are going to be used by the 90 people working there. I accept that 16 of the guests are going to go on bikes according to this, but that really did seem unlikely going down the A38. But so if there is an aspect within the first application that covers the fact that it was going to be used for this, in which case I don't think we can make that car park applicable to this particular venue, because it wasn't put in place for that, in which case we haven't got sufficient parking for this.
I'm obviously not sure what the intentions were in the previous application. That was before my time here. However, I know that the previous application was for a spa, and I think there was some residential elements to it as well. But as part of the unilateral undertaking, it was talked about that perhaps we would remove those uses, that they would not be able to be implemented before now, and that if they were to be implemented, they would have to apply for permission again, and therefore only the parking would be able to be used for this permission. So yeah, I can't comment on what their intentions were before and whether that was specifically for this wedding venue.
Councillor Salter next, please.
Yes, thank you. Just quickly, it was mentioned earlier about coaches, saying that there was no provision. Does that mean that they are prohibited in any respect?
Not prohibited. However, the transport assessment says that it is unlikely that people will attend via coaches.
So I think, don't know.
Councillor Mears.
I can see where Councillor Checkland's going with this, talking about the larger area of parking. That's not actually been built yet. And it could potentially be a chicken and egg situation where, if we're considering the wedding venue on its own, there isn't enough sustainable parking within the application as it stands for that to be given the go ahead as a standalone wedding venue. And the parking, the larger area parking, the one that's going to cause the greatest area of concern to residents, and it's not been built yet. So I would suggest that this application is deferred while we look at both. Get more information on whether,
Go on, sorry.
I would suggest that this decision is deferred because there's a lack of clarity about the parking.
Councillor Checkland, if you wanted to say something. Go on then. Sorry. Yeah.
So from what I understand through the unilateral undertaking, there'll be a legal requirement that the larger car park will be built out prior to development being commenced on this one. Sorry, so there is that sort of two-step process put in there.
So yeah, on the front page, the recommendation is to approve subject to the prior completion of the unilateral undertaking relating to the car parking approved on the other planning application. So
As part of that unilateral undertaking, all of those parking spaces would have to be delivered before a spade was put in the ground.
Councillor Checkland now.
I get that, but that's even if that parking was approved for something completely different in the first place and not as car parking for this wedding venue. I'm struggling with this now. In my head, within the plan, we've got parking for 53 spaces for this particular plan. The additional one, the other one that's been approved elsewhere, is not connected to this. It's to do with the spa and swimming pool and other issue. I'd like some guidance whether or not we can tie those things together. In my head, there's 53 spaces allocated to 90 people working there and up to 360 guests. And a car park that's been authorised for something else used during more sociable hours of a spa and a swimming pool, which would probably stop at 9:30, 10 o'clock, as opposed to something that's going to go on till 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So I don't see.
Okay, so can I just take a quick straw poll? Do members generally feel the same as Councillor Checkland or different to Councillor Checkland? Are we all?
I can understand where, through your chair, I can understand where Councillor Checkland is coming. Of course, if the spa, etc., does go ahead, the times are going to clash. There's little doubt of that, I would think. Fight for spaces.
So just to come in, we can, at this point, we can only deal with the application that we have before us. And we don't know what the future plans are that the owners of Swinfen Hall might want to come forward with. Obviously, there are other matters that are subject to enforcement appeal at the moment. What we have done here is create a legal agreement to tie in this car parking because it's still a valid permission that was granted in 2022 because it has that 3-year permission that they could implement. But what we're trying to do is tie in that additional car parking to assist with bringing forward this business option of creating a renewed wedding venue on the site, where we have already said before we didn't accept the marquee option on the site because that created its own previous issues.
If I may, Chair.
Yeah.
It's the implication we've already discussed in respect of the marquee, and if it goes through appeal, and similarly with the development of spas, etc., then that car park has already been allocated for that other use. So are we at liberty to say you can't use it for something that it's already earmarked for? We need it used for this new application. I don't think we can. It's not in the red line for a start off.
No, but we're tying that into
But
this.
can we, if it's already been allocated for something else which may well still develop? That's the point.
Sorry, yeah, Councillor Mears, yeah.
You can only make a decision on what line. How can another planning application that's not yet been constructed be tied to this one, but yet we can't put conditions on it to protect the residents from noise?
You do things complicated and easy to do. Yeah.
You got to come back.
Should give any advice on that.
No.
Since the application.
I think we need to do this.
Yeah.
No, I think we are. I think there's are. Oh, you're on the list.
Is the extent approved.
It's the same cost.
Car parking.
Car park is the same one that we're trying to say.
So it's
Speakers, I thought. As a government.
because all these approved. That's almost meant to just
Application on car parking.
So you see the car. Big different spaces. You'd have to have something which would prevent them from implementing the other aspects of that permission.
Yes, yeah, that was spoken about this year. Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
No.
I think in terms of solution, I mean, you've got the previous, well, the extent permission, which provides for the extension to the car parking. And I think the only potential solution would be to actually, for the applicant to actually agree not to implement elements of that permission so that the car parking would remain for the wedding venue. So,
Sorry, but what happens if the appeal is approved and they say, well, you know, that car park is part of that development?
I think the appeals for the marquees,
Yeah.
as I understand it,
Yes.
there's
So
currently,
parking for that.
yeah, there's currently an extant permission in place for 9 new hotel rooms, holiday cottages, lakeside chalets. And that was the reason for the extension to the car parking. That extended car parking was provided for. And that permission permits that car parking. So in terms of solution, I think if the applicant was willing to enter into some sort of legal agreement to say they would not implement the other aspects of that permission, they would only implement the car parking. And that would serve as car parking for the wedding venue. It would prevent them from using the car parking for another purpose. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's a potential solution.
Right. I've got a list of speakers. Councillor Galvin first.
Probably jumped in the gun. A lot of the arguments to me seem quite hypothetical, you know, ifs and buts, and actually the plan that we've got here in front of us for the wedding venue, to me is fairly clear cut. And I was going to propose that we'd vote on it, but I'm not sure if I'm jumping the gun now. Or you know, instead of proposing we vote on this, if people want a referral, should I propose a deferral?
Okay, let's just park that. I've got Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to do exactly what Councillor Galvin had just said. He used the word hypothetical. We're putting ourselves in a very, very invidious position here because we're trying to decide something and we have certain imponderables. And we could be here all night going round and round in circles and never resolve this. We can only resolve what we have in front of us. We can't second guess what the inspector is going to say. And I think if we try and incorporate the decision that the inspector will have to make at some point fairly soon into this evening's deliberations, we're making it extremely complicated, and it's making my head spin slightly because we've got the art of the possible, the art of the definite, and the art of the totally hypothetical, and trying to square that circle, trying to incorporate all of those and make a decision is incredibly difficult. I think all we can do is go on what we have in front of us, quite honestly, and I think we have to completely dispense with any considerations about the inspector's decision, which is to come in future. Otherwise, it's making our lives extremely difficult.
Okay, Councillor Chepland, I've got you down next.
I was just trying to look for the approval. I think it was 2022 and has to be started inside 3 years. I was just trying to look at whether or not it was January 2022, in which case 3 years is up.
I think it's later.
A bit later, so it's got to be started in the next few months, really. That was the only thing that I was going to ask on.
May.
and the decisions in relation to what that car park is going to be used for made by the inspectorate is probably way beyond that, May.
Yeah, but the inspector is not looking at the car park.
I get that.
They're looking at other things. I mean, there are 2 enforcement appeals on this site currently running, being considered. One is for the marquee, one is for the main building itself. So yeah, this is a bit separate to that.
My point is just in relation to the aspects of the times of night of the noise and the use of that car park when it wasn't approved for that in the first place. I know it's outside of the remit for this particular plan, but this particular plan only gives us a remit for 53 parking spaces to decide on. And we can put enforcement on that, but we can't on a car park approved for one thing, but then used for something else. I'm struggling with this one.
Next, please.
Chair, I share Councillor Marshall's comments that my head is spinning. I just wonder if I missed something, because how did a marquee get introduced into this discussion? There's never been any planning application for a marquee. It's a planning application for the wedding venue, which will seat or accommodate 350 people. My worry is, or concern, is that there is car parking for 50 cars behind that wedding venue. So that means basically 100 people. If it's a 350 person wedding, the rest of the wedding guests will have to use the car park by Swinfen Hall, which is 25 yards from the houses in the Swinfen estate. And the revellers leaving after a wedding at 1 or 1:30. Perhaps I've been to different weddings, but some of the weddings I've been to, people are very happy when they leave. And I can just imagine the noise of those revellers leaving in a car park 25 yards from the Swinfen estate. And my view is, I wouldn't want to live there, but that's my personal view on the application. And I don't know if we can turn it down on the noise aspect, but those are my views, and I don't know what everybody else feels about that.
Can we just have a one moment, please? Yeah.
Okay. If we go through with it. The plan.
Oh, yes. So the reason could be that we speak to the applicant. Entering into a legal agreement around the car.
That's correct.
Yes, if we, that's what, that's the reason.
To defer to applicant about car parking. Okay, over to Councillor Ashton to.
So, after discussion, I move that we defer this and come to consider it again following a legal agreement regarding the car parking with the operators of the facility. So I am moving for deferral.
Mears?
Recently had another application from Blackbrook. We didn't accept the application on the same merits. There wasn't enough parking. And we're in a situation where this application, what's within the red line, is not enough car parking spaces for the venue attached to it. I think the application's got to be amended before we can make a decision on it to accommodate, to include parking for the venue.
So you're also moving for deferral?
No agreement, but for of the application to include the correct parking.
So that's a refusal. Is anyone? Councillor Salter.
Yes, happy to defer, as I started off with.
To defer.
Taking the deferral. Can I just mention there the business of incorporating that extension car park? This committee would effectively be telling people they've got to park near to the houses. You know, if we sort of bring that into it, we can't really tell them where to park, but we're instructing people to park near the houses.
Okay, so we've got a recommendation to defer from councillor Ashton, seconded by councillor Salter, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I've just got, so that would like to say something before we take a vote on that.
Sorry, I know it shouldn't be coming in last minute, but I've only looked at this recently, but just going through the transport assessment, just so that everyone's clear. Basically, the approach they've taken is, there's no tricks. The modelling, there's industry standard modelling doesn't have wedding venues in it. So basically, their approach for taking the application is we get a previous application here in Birmingham, which undertook a survey, and they're basically going on a 4.65 guests per private car journey that was taken in that assessment across weddings. They're going so basically, and then they're saying that they've seen other venues take like 25%. So they're not saying they need that entire car parking space. They're saying that basically it's around about 75 parking spaces required for a full capacity 350 guest wedding. So maybe there was a bit of a misunderstanding, but they're saying essentially that new car parking area is sufficient to contain the private vehicle wedding.
The staff.
There's 90 people working there.
There's 90 staff, so it's nearly 404.
Hang on a minute, everybody. If you want to speak, please raise your hand and I will ask you. Okay, can't start with councillor Mears.
I feel that the application as it stands is unsustainable. It doesn't have adequate facilities for the business use during the day, wedding use or event use during the day, and wedding use during the evening, respective of any other facilities on site. The application as it stands can't be agreed.
So now we've got the deferral and the second.
There's been a second to the deferral, so there need to be a vote on the deferral.
What would be in that?
Defer. Choosing not. Also don't vote to comment to accept or reject.
So we
To do the deferral.
Okay, right. Okay, everybody. Thank you. We're going to add a proposal and a seconder for the deferral. We're now going to vote on that. Okay, so we'll start with the deferral. All those minded to defer this, please get a show of hands. Okay, all those not minded to defer, all those against that? And anyone abstaining? So that hasn't. Okay, so that hasn't gone through the deferral. We're not deferring that based on that.
Yes. She was, yeah, so she needs.
Okay, so let's just
take statement
we'll just get
and
that.
then.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to just confirm, councillor Mears, was you proposing to reject
Application.
Yes. Yeah, okay, so you've got a proposer to reject. Councillor Checkland,
Yeah, happy to second.
rejected. So we need to take a vote.
The reasons, don't they? You need reasons for the rejection. So is it, are you saying it's insufficient parking?
If you can advise us if that would be a suitable reason, there isn't parking or the proposed usage of the site.
Okay,
So that's employment and events.
Noise nuisance and the location of the proposed car park, if that is to be.
So the insufficient parking to accommodate the full uses of the proposal within the application site, that's a valid reason, and we can add that. The noise, just to check.
Sorry, carry on. I was just going to say, I think the officer wants for me.
I just want to clarify about the parking spaces. So there are 79, as I stated in the presentation, there are 79 existing parking spaces that are already there. They're already in use. The extension would be 155 extra spaces. So in the transport assessment, they're saying that they only need 75 spaces. they're proposing 53 on site within the red line, and they've already got 79 there. So theoretically, there is enough parking spaces provided like already through what could be proposed and what's already there.
Councillor Mears, yeah.
Traffic assessment is based on people attending an event and it indicates multiple people per car. But for employment, often it'd be one person per car attending work. So if you've got a number of people in the offices, that takes up and there's one person per car, that takes up a large proportion of the parking. And then you don't have enough capacity with the remainder to accommodate all of the guests of a wedding. That's my understanding of the mass. If you correct me if I have it wrong.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Checkland.
My point's in relation to the parking. Current parking is there because it's a hotel. And those car parking spaces are already in use for events that happen at the hotel. So if the hotel is going to close and it's just becoming a wedding venue, that does free up parking spaces. That's correct.
But if I may, so our understanding is the hotel is not in use at the moment. That's been closed for some time. So that building is in private use at the moment. I understand the applicant lives there himself as a private residence, so that's not in use at the moment. Just to clarify the point you raised around the refusal reasons around noise, I just want to say you can use that, but I just want to highlight that we have put in quite robust noise conditions. So what you're proposing is sort of saying that they wouldn't be enough to overcome that potential reason for refusal. So I just want to just raise a little bit of caution around using that as a potential reason to refuse the application. The parking one, absolutely, that's a valid reason. Just want to raise a bit of caution around the noise element. I'm not saying can't do it because it's something.
I understand what you're saying. Is it related to the application site? I'm happy that the conditions will look after the noise in relation to the venue. It's the noise outside of the site which we can't put a control on. So we can't put a control on it.
Sorry, I was just going to add to what Artemis has just said about the noise. Difficulty is environmental health are satisfied that it should be approved subject to conditions, and environmental health are the council's advisors on those matters. Obviously, you're going against the statutory consultee, the experts in that area. You're going against their advice essentially. So, if you were to refuse it on those grounds, then potentially you could be acting unreasonably, and if the application was appealed, then you could be exposed to a cost award on appeal.
But we can still go ahead with the parking one.
The problem is car park was approved for something that happens during the daytime and noise wouldn't have been a consideration when approving it. Environmental health would have approved it for the use that it was being put forward to, and now it's being proposed for a wedding venue, but it's already approved with different conditions for a spa and swimming pool, and now it's going to be used for something that ought to have better noise conditions attached to it for the use that it would then be put to. And if we can't do it, it's a shame. Bonkers before bonkers, but get it. I mean, I think it's right, but I get it.
Thank you, Councillor Mears.
The wedding venue won't go ahead if there isn't adequate parking, and there isn't adequate parking at the moment. So the parking won't be built if there isn't a wedding venue to feed it. So by asking for a resubmission of the application for the wedding venue to include the parking, that will then open up the avenue for us to discuss better measures to protect the noise. So it's what I'm trying to say is it's not a no, but it's that can be a better yes for them down the line.
Do we need to take a vote now? Have we had? Oh yeah, we haven't had a seconder. Anybody? Sorry.
I did. You seconded, James.
Yeah,
Yes, I did.
yeah, you did. Yeah. Okay, so we've had someone a refusal and a seconder. So we'll go to a vote on that. Anybody who would like to refuse, please raise your hand.
What is the reason for refusal?
Oh, okay.
Parking.
Yeah.
Insufficient parking.
Insufficient parking. Okay, we'll start again with the vote. Anybody minded to refuse? Okay, okay, anyone that disagrees with that? Anyone? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So is that in favour?
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Any, yeah, any what, sorry? Any abstentions? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, councillor Bowden.
So have we got this agenda? Come on, it's closed.
That's it, we're done.
Still.
No, no, we can't have any more opinions unless it's a really valid question that hasn't been answered. I think we're done with that.
So now you have to go for a vote. Approval.
Okay, so now we have to go for a vote on approval. So anybody minded to approve, please can you raise your hand?
5.
Okay, 5. Anyone who is against that?
3, 4.
And anyone abstaining?
Chair, you have a vote.
Okay, okay then,
First place.
okay, so I'm voting for whether we approve it, aren't we? Okay.
You agree to approval?
But if I do agree to go through, if I don't agree, what happens? It's all on
You can vote to either go with the approval or vote to refuse it, and then we go with the reason for refusal that was tabled.
Okay. Yeah, okay, okay, yeah. Okay, then I'll go with that then.
Wouldn't need separate vote on refusal.
No, you need a separate vote. You need another motion. Yeah. Seconds it needs to be voted on.
Tried the vote on refusal, it didn't pass.
Vote, so it's your choice whether it's approved or refused. If it's refused, it's on.
To approve the application. So that's the motion on the table currently.
Approve.
To approve.
Okay, so if I vote against that.
Yeah.
Motion's defeated.
Yeah.
New motion.
Is the motion to approve? The motion is to approve the application, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So if you just,
At the moment, are we tied?
it gets.
Yes, 5-all.
Hang on a minute, everybody, sorry.
That didn't go.
I think we need a separate vote on defer. I thought.
Yeah.
You need a separate motion.
Separate motion.
Either.
What if you didn't vote in that one?
Yeah,
Do it again. Or have a vote.
Yeah,
in it.
yeah, but we'd need to do, yeah, you're quite right.
Defer one, wasn't it?
No, basically.
You voted for that vote.
Not
We're swimming now.
Set the options.
Yes, set out the options.
So if you want to. You vote.
Yeah.
Then we has to vote. Probably has to put that. We've all done refuse. Someone else to say. Yeah.
So, say that,
What they mean.
is it the no carpet?
Or we get a,
Yeah. Eventually someone can them away.
yeah. Okay, okay, well, we'll just go for a try of that then. Okay, so we're going to have to go for a vote for deferral again.
You voting against the approval motion first, sorry.
Yes, yes, sorry, first I vote against.
Have you voted, Chair?
I have just voted yes, I'm just
Or against?
against.
All right.
Okay, so now we have to vote for deferral again. We have to go through that because it wasn't passed last time. So can I ask now everybody to raise their,
Just make a point here, because I tried to before and you didn't.
sorry, I'm ever so sorry. You raised your hand.
Why can't we go for a defer?
I'm going to vote for now.
I heard that, but giving the applicant the opportunity to address the various things that's been discussed here and debated on, i.e. the park and this sort of thing. So give them the opportunity to come back again, because I don't think anybody wants to see this go. We want to protect that hall.
Yeah.
The venue is going, it's in here, the venue is going to help fund it in various ways. If we don't see this happen, this venue, then we're gonna lose the benefit of the Swinton Hall. So why don't we defer it and give the applicant the opportunity to come back addressing the various items that we've debated and not happy with? That's fair for everybody then, surely.
Yeah, do you want to propose that?
I propose that, yes.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Okay, we have a seconder. Okay, so now can we take a vote on deferring it and it coming back after the applicant looking at everything that we have discussed? Okay, we'd like to vote to approve the deferral. Okay, so that has now passed with 8 votes. Everybody, we voted to defer. Oh, sorry, voted, sorry, against. Sorry. Votes against that. 3, and any abstentions? Okay, so we've got a deferral on that based on car parking numbers. Okay, thank you everybody for that. Thank you for taking time to listen to everybody. Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, so that's the end. Oh, well, I need to read. I've lost mine. Okay, everybody, at the end of that application, that matter is resolved and we're down to the exclusion of public and press. It is resolved that publicity would be prejudicial